Yes, welcome back to another episode of The Whistle Blows. It's been about a week or so since our last episode, which is a long time in Tottenham Hotspur land. We've lost two more games. We've lost our captain to a four-match ban. We've lost Udogi to another hamstring injury. We've lost Odebert to an ACL, and we've now lost our manager. That's a lot of L's, and so we've got our two favourite L's of the Spurs YouTube community to help break it down. Lubo from the Spurs 5 making his debut on the channel. How are you, Lubo?
All good tonight, thanks. Quite happy. Woke up this morning waiting to see the announcement, and it came. So all good news.
Very good. And Luke, lovely to have you back on. You are our first returning guest, so lovely to have you back on. How are you, mate?
What a privilege. Is everyone else busy then? Was they all booked out? So no, thanks again for having me on, guys. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. And what a day. What a day, eh?
What a day.
Indeed, mate. Indeed. And Bill, how are you, mate?
Yeah, all good, mate. All good. I was like Lubo, I was waiting for this. And all morning I was on a train home from Glasgow, and I actually fell asleep about 9 o'clock, and I got woken up by a phone call from Darren Johnson, who'd probably be watching this. And I know if he's ringing me, something's going on with Tottenham because we don't speak on the phone otherwise. And checked my phone, and there it was. So yeah, all good. Emergency podcast. Very happy to be on with the two gents, and let's get into it.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I had a heavy weekend in Budapest on a stag do, so I'm still a little bit husky even now on Wednesday. So Bill, you're going to have to do more of the questions, I think, tonight. But anyway, we probably should start with a game before we jump straight into the Frank situation. Newcastle game. Lubo, you were there last night, weren't you?
Yeah.
What did you make of it, mate?
The atmosphere was shocking. First half, Raphael described it to me today as first half was like watching a non-league team against a Premier League team. He said we looked appalling. No fight, no movements. They just ripped us, carved us open time after time. I think I saw the corner count was 9-0. The shots at half time was 10-3. We hadn't had any shots on target out of those three. I think Newcastle had several. And it was just that for me was the worst 45 minutes I've seen Spurs play. That was worse than Forest. And I don't know, it was you could see they weren't playing for him. Half of them didn't look interested, particularly. You know, there's no closing down. The goal they scored from the cross, the first goal, virtual carbon copy of Burnley's goal. Right back puts, curls the ball in to the back post. Nobody closing down. Was it Trippier who put the ball in, I think? No one closing him down. Again, no one really marking at the back. Header came in, Vicario saved. No one reacted. Just shocking. Just like they're in a coma. A little bit better second half, but as soon as we scored, we're on the back foot again. Then Gallagher broke, and I don't know why he just gives a blind pass, because that was 3-on-3. That could have gone up the other end, 2-1 up. Different game then. Momentum swings, confidence is flowing, and in those 30 seconds from Gallagher breaking and losing the ball, we're 2-1 down, and again we're backing off, inviting the opposition to shoot. Before you know it, we worked hard to get back second half, and we're 2-1 down again. And we didn't look like scoring after that.
Libya, can I just go back to something you said at the beginning about the atmosphere? Because I was in Scotland yesterday, so I missed it. Missed the first half as well, actually. Obviously, this was labelled as a must-win game for Tottenham, and Newcastle coming into it were in dreadful form. What was the atmosphere like at the very beginning? Was there a sort of sense that this was a massive game, or was it a bit like City where there was just no sense of joy inside that stadium whatsoever?
I think the normal, the guy playing the old trumpet was fans were singing loudly, started off well, and it just got quieter and quieter as the game went on.
And do you think that's because Newcastle just dominated that first half?
Yeah. I think the fans at times tried to get behind the team. Second half was dreadful, and I haven't heard "you're getting sacked in the morning" sung with such gusto ever at any ground.
And the Pochettino chants were there, right, as well?
Yeah. There was one Pochettino, his magic, that was booming out as well. Yeah, I think people have just had enough.
And Luke, after the game, obviously, I don't want to spend too long talking about the game. I don't think anyone does, to be honest. But did you think Thomas Frank could possibly survive that?
I wasn't sure. My initial reaction was straight away was thinking he's got to go. But I said the same thing at West Ham. I didn't think there was going to be a single result against anyone this year where that first half against West Ham I couldn't see being any worse than again, particularly when you take into consideration the sort of the rivalry and obviously the form they were in, etc. So I was like, he's definitely going to go. And then when we were speaking to a few other people on Last Word on Spurs yesterday, someone suggested maybe that Arsenal was a free shot, right? And you bring in a new player and a new manager, and you go and get beat against Arsenal convincingly. Then all of a sudden the new tenure started off terribly, and fans are getting a bit fidgety with that straight away. So in my head, I was thinking maybe they wait until that Arsenal game, get past that, and then they've possibly got a chance to kind of start on good momentum. But initially, soon as the game ended, I thought he's got to go. Like he has to go. Like it doesn't matter when it is. He has to go, and it has to be fairly soon. So yeah, I was a little bit surprised because I thought so often this year that's the game. Like he's not going to return from that, and then he's carried on and he's gone to the next game, etc. So, but initial thought, soon as the game was ended, I thought he needed to go. It's time now to go.
And Connor, same. Did you think he could possibly survive this one?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I suppose the thing with after yesterday's game is you had that break, right? And I thought that might be, with having 12 days, is it, between yesterday and the Arsenal game? I thought they might think that this is their last opportunity if they are going to make that decision. And I mean, we were only a few seconds away again from West Ham being within 3 points of us, right? Had Sesko not scored that great goal at the very end. And to be honest, I tuned into the end of that game. West Ham had a few chances before that to make it 2-0, right? So
the Wilson one right at the end as well, didn't they?
Yeah. So I think the worry is, and we're obviously going to chat about relegation and the relegation battle a bit later, is that the way we're playing at the moment is actually worse than the teams around us, which is a worry because we can't. I mean, we lost to West Ham, we couldn't beat Burnley, lost to Forest. So all of those teams that are around us, who do you actually fancy us to get a result against? So I think that we all know, and we're going to chat about it a lot more, that the problems run a lot deeper than just Frank. And I think we don't have to preach to the converted of the people who are on this panel to chat about that type of stuff. But I think it got to the stage where the gamble or the risk of not doing anything was greater than the risk of doing something. And I think we had to throw the dice at this point. And I'm sad because I was an advocate for Frank in the summer. I think Lubo, you were as well, right? In terms of, I thought he was going to do much better than he has done, and he has been an absolute disappointment, that's for sure. But I think it's the right decision now. But where we go from here, I don't know.
Yeah, and we will definitely get into the relegation chat in a bit. But I always feel like this is when you get this kind of news, it's a bit like when people say they remember where you were when you first heard the Beatles or something like that, or when Michael Jackson died. But I want to know, for all three of you, where were you when you found out the news, and what was your initial reaction? Lubo, what were you working? What was your initial first thing that happened when you heard this Thomas Frank news this morning?
Put Sky Sports News on, and they had Michael Bridge coming into the studio to talk about last night and how long does Frank stay? And all of a sudden, he was coming into with breaking news. So for me, I was quite pleased about that. I think that they probably done it just in time. I really do think it's literally, if they'd have left it any later, I think the fact we've got Arsenal gives whoever comes in a chance to come in and work with the team for a week, start to get to know them, and for me, there was no time to waste. You know, you leave it another 2 weeks till we lose to Arsenal. Time is precious. Time is a commodity that we don't really have that much of. You know, the season finishes in 3 months, just over 3 months, and 12 games. We probably need to be saved 12 points. So we need somebody to come in and start getting the system in place, talking to the players, showing the players what they need, what they want. And I just think, although it's going to be really difficult because half the squad's out injured and the other half are going to be running to the ground, which is why I was pleased to hear that they've got a 5-day break just to go and relax before the madness starts again. And you know, the sooner they get somebody appointed and in, the better. So we'll see what happens. But the news I've heard is that Vinay wants De Zerbi, and they've reached out to his intermediaries. The family want Poch. Let's see what happens.
I mean, we'll definitely be having a big discussion on what happens next in a minute. Chat, let us know where you were when you heard the news as well and what your reaction was. Luke, what were you doing this morning about 9:30 or wherever it was? I think it was about between 9 and 10 o'clock. What were you doing when you found out? And were you surprised?
I was working from home, so I was on the old emails, and then in a few different WhatsApp groups, and ping, and thought, bit unusual for a 9:30, unless something's kicking off in the background where someone's backing Frank and others aren't. Thought maybe the Ange chat had kicked off. I weren't quite sure. Had a little look over.
We'll talk about that a bit later as well. There's a bit of development there as well, isn't there?
Had a little look over and see far too many cheers and smiles and happiness in a Spurs WhatsApp group. So I knew that there was some big news that had happened. And then had to run outside, being on YouTube, had to run outside and film my own little short to try and get the news out there as if other people hadn't read it. But yeah, I was, as I say, I was shocked in a way, just purely because I keep going back to that West Ham game. I just felt like there was no way that you could return from that. And then obviously, I do think it was the right decision. I was not on the same wavelength as Connor and Lubo at the start of the season. I kept saying that this man has not got any. I don't want to be the gamble yet again. Spurs are not in a position to need to gamble. We've just got into the Champions League. We've just won Europe. We should be going and targeting a level of manager that we know can come in and deliver, whether it be in the Europe, whether it be towards the top of the league. I'm not saying we would have been anywhere near the top, but trying to get there. And I just felt that it was always a possibility that he was, from a playing style point of view, the fans were never going to be on board. And it means that you need to come in and you need to immediately just constantly get results. And there's no proof that this man could ever have done that. However, as you said earlier, he seems like an amazing man. He seems like a great person. A lot of people within football have said that he's so intelligent, he's so nice to be around, etc. And this isn't all on him, and it isn't all on him at all. There are other failings at this club, as there was last year. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't absorb any responsibility, exactly like the players, right? You can't say they don't have any responsibility because this is all on the manager. You can't say it's neither on them because it's all on the board. Everyone has to take their own fair share. Is this squad good enough? No. But should we be doing better than we currently are? I mean, Leeds are above us right now. And that for me says everything you need to say. I said it yesterday. I said it last night. Joe Rodon was a meme amongst this fan base because of how that was a signature that we didn't back a previous manager. Well, Joe Rodon's currently above us right now. So that just proves the sort of level of everybody at this moment in time this season. And it's not good enough from everyone.
Yeah, and as we speak, Forest are still drawing at the moment, but they could go level on points with us as well. And I looked at that Leeds result last night and could not imagine a world where we come back from 2-0 down at Stamford Bridge. So there's a lot to do. And then now, full disclosure, me and Connor regularly talk throughout most of the day, and then in the same group chat as these guys as well. But couldn't get hold of him at the peak hour this morning. I couldn't get a reply. Connor, were you busy at work when it was all kicking off?
Yeah, this seems to always happen to me. Yeah, I was in a meeting running a presentation at the time.
Was your phone buzzing?
Yeah, I saw it going off, but it wasn't even one of those, where you can just sort of listen, because I was actually presenting, so I couldn't be on on my phone. So yeah, it was annoying. But the same thing happened when the Levy news dropped. And as someone who runs a Twitter account called @Levynomics, was on the fucking tube when that dropped as well. So missed that completely. Came out, and then I remember ringing my dad and going, "Levy's gone," and I think he thought I was messing around. But
that's the first thing
anyway,
I did.
it was.
I rang my dad as well. I was like, "Have you heard, Dad? He's gone."
Yeah. As you say, it's like one of those moments, like the Beatles. But yeah, look, I agree with a lot of what the guys have been saying. I think it was definitely time. I think my worry always has been. I think I said this probably a few weeks back. That I don't think you sack a manager mid-season unless you've got a guarantee of someone who's better, like Nuno being replaced by Conte, or you're starting to flirt with relegation when it's someone's first year. And I think we fell to that second part where we are genuinely flirting with relegation. It's been pretty dreadful. I think, excluding the sort of start he had with maybe PSG in the Super Cup, the City game, Burnley, where you could see a little bit of something. It's been pretty terrible from that point. And there's people in the chat, and like Ferg is in there. Ferg and I had a bit of back and forth probably earlier in the season. Ferg called it very, very early. I wanted to give him a bit more time. I've always got a little bit more patience with managers, probably because of the fact I know the ownership is so bad. And so I know that every manager is fighting against something, and whatever they achieve is in spite of the ownership, not because of the ownership. And so, I really wanted it to work out. But, sometimes we have to hold our hands up in life and go, yeah, we got this one wrong. And I think Frank is definitely one of the ones we got wrong. And I think it's, for me, what it really, really, really highlights is how difficult making that step up is for managers, right? From clubs that don't have the attention that a Tottenham Hotspur has, or a Big Six club has, the fishbowl of managing this type of football club. And I think you've seen it now with countless examples, and Frank seems to be another one of those.
Yeah, and just to give you guys a heads up, what we'll probably do is we'll probably talk a little bit about on the show tonight about where it went wrong for Thomas Frank next, and then we'll probably talk about what's going to come next. But we definitely will go into that little topic about relegation as well, because I think this going into it, like, to be honest with you guys, like last night was the first time I've actually thought this could be real. Like we could actually get relegated now, because I've never dismissed it, but I've always kind of thought that we'll have enough to do it and we'll be all right. But last night, I wasn't so sure. So I think this might be why this happened. But yes, well, that's the things that we'll talk about. But just drop us a chat or super chat if you want to add anything to that discussion as well. But Lubo, we'll start with you. Where did it all go wrong for Thomas Frank then? Why has he ended up on the with his P45? Where did it go wrong for Thomas Frank?
I look on it slightly differently to how Connor's just described his feelings and thoughts. I overestimated the impact that Frank had at Brentford. I think he did a very good job, but within a collective. Whereas I thought it was more like a normal orthodox type manager situation, where if you got a good manager, I'm not comparing Frank in any shape or form to Conte, but Conte left, the form dived. And I actually, with Brentford, they put together such a great system there that everybody contributes. And I think we've seen that with Frank's gone, Keith Andrews has come in, and with the backup and support and recruitment and data, etc., Brentford aren't doing any worse than they did last year. So for me, I thought Frank was probably more influential, let me say, at Brentford than he was. I'll own that, but and I just think in the first 7 games in the league, we had 14 points. I remember walking out of Ellen Road first Saturday in October thinking, do you know what a great start to the season. We've got an international break. Apart from City, without actually hitting the heights
So we beat the international break curse once, didn't we? After that one,
yeah, it was, and it all went wrong from there. And okay, Wolves was really poor, Bournemouth was poor, but the performances at West Ham, Brighton, Leeds were all decent performances. And you're looking at, what are we? We're looking at sort of 10 points out of 12 away from home. We just think the home form's not been great. Get that sorted after the international break. And, we can have a decent season. We're not going to be challenging anywhere near the top three teams. But we could be there or thereabouts, 5th, 6th, 7th. And it's sort of just gone wrong from there. I think the first time alarm bells rung for me was when Frank was talking about how he sees the season and how he sees it panning out. We'll have 10 games where we play really well. And then we'll have X amount where we're average and the rest that we don't play well. I just thought to myself, you're too honest. You're being too honest. Fans don't want to hear that. And this is a big club. This is a big club. And I know it's a big club that haven't behaved like a big club for many years. And Frank has not had the backing, proper backing, over 2 windows that he should have had as well. But he's, apart from Ange, who for me had backing, but only up to a point. They actually spent plenty of money, but wouldn't go the extra mile for players that maybe he wanted where the wages were higher, because there was a wage cap at the time. But since then, the football is mind-numbingly boring. It's go to Spurs. If you're suffering from insomnia, it's a great cure. And it's sort of gone downhill in the league since then. The home fans, I'm fortunate. I go to most away games and I've seen 5 of the 7 league wins this season away from home. The majority of 95%, 90% of the fan base don't go away from home. So they've had to watch another half season, just over half season, of absolute garbage at home. Our home record's dreadful. It's been dreadful for a couple of years. It's not just a Frank thing, and it does get toxic quickly at home. We've heard Odebear talking about being scared to play because being scared to try things and make a mistake because of the home fans. But I just think the fans are just fed up after many years of general underachievement. We've had a few pockets of years that have been very good. But by and large, it hasn't been, and we're the biggest underachiever, I think, out of all the big clubs in the Premier League, by a mile. And I just don't think Frank got to grips with the fact that this is a big club. And I think he struggled. I think he lost the dressing room quite early. Things are coming out. I think the guy from The Athletic was writing tonight that Frank would focus on the opposition. And he more than our strengths, he'd focus on duels and etc. And he just didn't motivate the players. And I think he lost the players early. He lost the players' respect early, and it's just sort of gone downhill from there. And you had Spence and Van der Ven. Can you imagine Jose or Conte putting up with that? They just wouldn't. They wouldn't. They'd have been fined straight away. Or, Romero opening his mouth about the board. I fully agree with what he's, the club's lack of ambition. You know how I feel about Enoch. And this time just gone, I just got to the point where I just thought, oh, to hell with it. They've got to know how people feel. But you can't have a captain 3 times now who's spoken against the club. There's a complete breakdown in discipline within that dressing room. I'm hearing Romero runs the dressing room. Players had no respect for Frank, and you can see, and you can't have that in a football club. So the whole thing's just sort of spiraling down, and in the end, they had no choice but to get rid of him.
Yeah, and we'll definitely come back onto that stuff about the Athletic article because there's been a few interesting bits there. Before I come on to Luke, a bit of breaking news, not manager related. Gazzetta d'Italia have just done an article saying that Vicario wants to leave in summer, so I'm sure everyone will join me in trying to fund his aeroplane out there, because I don't think that'll be sadly missed at this point, will it, guys? But Vicario also wants to leave. Another member of the leadership group wants to go. So everything's going really well at Tottenham. But I think on this case, we'll let him go gleefully at this point. Luke, same question to you. Now, you're like me, a bit more of a Thomas Frank skeptic. Did try and give him a bit of time at the beginning, but it sort of quickly unravelled for me, particularly after that Chelsea and Arsenal game. I think was the point where I was done early doors. Where did it go wrong for this man? Why didn't this man succeed? And I know that's a huge question, but where do you think Thomas Frank went wrong?
There's a few things, right? I mean, coming in straight away and saying, I guarantee you will lose games. I mean, there's a way of talking, and there's, if he came in and said, look, I can guarantee we're going to win a few, we're going to draw a few, and we're going to lose a few. That's a completely different shift to we're going to lose games. I guarantee you one thing, we're going to lose games. Nothing a mention of winning or drawing. I just, again, just look, when you walk through, probably isn't the case, but when you walk through the training ground and through that stadium, to dare is to do is the motto. To dare is to lose. It's just absolutely madness to me. But ironically, that was the reason why I felt it was never going to work, because of the reason that Lubo's just suggested. What are Brentford? Brentford are a well-run club with very good recruitment. They've got a clear plan. When one person leaves, another person comes in. It's almost like they know what they're doing. This club, just flip it the other way, and that's what he's walking into. And I think this is what I'm sick and tired of doing here at Spurs, is we bring in people that are very good at a certain job, and we go, okay, brilliant, that's got you here. Now can you do something completely different? So why would we do that? So we bring in Nuno. Can you play good attacking football? I mean, yeah, because that's what I've done all my life. Yeah. Frank, can you play good attacking football? Yeah, because that's what I've done. We just do it consistently all the time. And the links that I know we're going to go on to it to De Zerbi are the epitome of Tottenham Hotspur. We had Paratici in, who was fighting tooth and nail to get De Zerbi in. Soon as Paratici goes out the door, we're now linked with De Zerbi. Hang on, what? Same thing with Gallagher. You had the rumours came out soon as Ange went. Soon as we signed Gallagher, Ange was on the phone to him 8 times in the last 3 windows. Soon as Ange goes, we then go and get Gallagher. It's almost like we're operating 6 months behind. It's just absolutely madness. And this was you can tell Frank is someone who's always in control, understands, knows the environment. He'd been at Brentford. He knew everybody. He knew how it was all going to work. That does not happen at Spurs. It's chaotic. It's mental. Things are happening that shouldn't happen. You've got players turning up for training, I have no doubt, every day of the week. And it was, for me, it was just always going to be. But like everyone, you then, right, we're going to appoint him now. And then you start looking at all the positives. Okay, well, what if he can strengthen up that defence? What happens if we can look a little bit more structured? He did get players and improve them. Your Mbuemos, your Tonys, your Wissers, and the list goes on. So you start looking at that. But it just never clicked. And I just think the mentality, and again, going from one to another, you had Andrew, tactically, you can argue whatever you want, but you can tell that in meetings, in conversations, he's sitting there going, you're great. We're destined for greatness. We're going to win. We're going to be top. And then it's complete opposite, looking at Frank just going, we're crap. We're useless. We're not very good. We ain't great. We're going to lose games. It's so disheartening. And people forget, we all love football. Fans turn up to football because they just love football. It's their sense of optimism that you can go to and you can dream of. Can you be like Champions League, for instance? There's no chance we're going to win a Champions League, but could we? And with him, it's just everything was just deflated. Every time he said something, it's like, oh, really? We're going through that again. It's like we're constantly just being told we're crap. And I think part of that is because he kept mentioning 17th, and the reason why I think he was doing that was because to him, if he finished 16th, that was an improvement. And it was like, look at the job I'm doing. We finished 17th last year. We're 16th now. And it's like that's not what people want to be hearing. Van der Ven's in interview saying, I want to be the best in the world, and his manager's saying, I guarantee you we're going to lose games. It's just the wrong mentality, I think, for a club that want to get to that very top.
Yeah, completely agree. And there's a really interesting video that's doing the rounds at the moment about Brentford. You both mentioned it, the same principles, basically. If you look at all of the managers that have left Brentford, firstly, they generally hire managers with no managerial experience. Thomas Frank had very little. Keith Andrews had even less. Dean Smith had even less when he was manager. And pretty much all of them go on to do poorly. Do really well at Brentford, leave Brentford, get a bigger job, and they do poorly. And that's because the structure at Brentford. And there's an article today that said, Thomas Frank was surprised that there was no one else at Tottenham who was in charge of the discipline like there is at Brentford. But obviously at Tottenham, he was expected to be the manager. So I think that's a really key thing to keep an eye on as well. And Connor, where do you think it went wrong to Thomas Frank?
Yeah, I think the guys have touched on a lot of the key points. To be honest, I think for me, he was petrified of losing, and when you're at a big club, I'm not saying that you need to go the way that Ange went, right? In terms of Ange was too far the other way, in terms of thinking that we could beat anyone, even when we had umpteen injuries. And sometimes, it does cry out for a little bit of pragmatism. But I think with Frank, he was so afraid of the opponent. And then when you're playing teams like, and look, we all know the players in the squad are not good enough for what we actually want to achieve, but most people were predicting that Tottenham were going to finish somewhere between 6th and 9th, say, at the start of the season. And we can pull back to all the various YouTube videos and people's tweets and everything else, and most people were saying that. And to be sitting 16th in the league, even with the number of injuries, which we'll cover that in a bit of detail later because that's been an issue again, is not good enough. And you've got to be beating Wolves at home. And there's a way of, if you draw with Wolves, but you've absolutely peppered their goal for the whole game and the keeper's had a blinder, you sort of go, okay, fair enough. It happens sometimes. But we stole that result against Wolves, to be honest, with Paolini scoring at the death. And that's just one example. There's obviously umpteen of those. So, yeah, I think I think Lubo's right when he says the point around the Brentford model did a lot of the heavy lifting, is what this has sort of proven to us for him. And I think this is why you have to be really conscious. And as we're going into another manager search now, and we'll speak about who some of the candidates are, I think this is the risk when you take managers, as I said before, from these teams that are lower in division. Can they scale up? I thought that Frank might be able to, because of the way that he's been able to develop players and also the different attacking profiles he made work at Brentford. I thought, okay, maybe he's got something there that could adapt to a bigger club. Quite clearly, that wasn't the case. Yeah, look, I think it's definitely the right thing, as I said before, that he's gone. It's going to be interesting where we go now. I mean, Brentford, to the point Lubo made earlier, Brentford are 7th, aren't they now? I think, or they were 7th last time I checked.
Yeah.
Hopefully they win
so
tomorrow.
I mean, they've got an outside chance of Europe, right? Post him going. So, it shows what a fantastically run club they are. I mean, what was interesting for me as well, I can't remember if I sent it to you or not, Bill, but I mean, Brentford, by the way, as known as a football club that is run fantastically well, but run within its means, today released their set of accounts, and interestingly, their wage to revenue ratio is 76%. We're sitting at 40 odd %. They're between them and Brighton, they've made £150 million of operating loss, which shows to me they're two of the best run clubs in the country. And look at the relative ambition of those two clubs compared to us. It's absolutely startling. So if we can't even look good in terms of our conservatism against those two fantastically run clubs, who can we look good against? It just shows what an absolute farce this ownership is.
Yeah.
Completely. And if you're listening to this on audio, we're going to go into a first break now quickly. If you're joining us for the first time, it's got mad numbers here. Please subscribe, but more importantly, subscribe to the Spurs 5 of Lubo and Spotlight on Spurs of Luke, 2 amazing channels. And this will be the first of many times we get these guys on, because we're always in contact with them. Great guys. And just a quick thank you to Super Spurs TV, which I'm reliably informed is our friend Blaine. Some bunch of fine looking gents. He must be talking about Lubo and Connor. And he's slating Luke there. Luckily, Luke's not there to see it, but I will break his heart with that a bit later on. And our first ever member as well. We don't really know what we're doing with members yet. We haven't decided, but we've got one. I mean, Connor, we're gonna do some special membership stuff, but our first one. So thank you very, very much for that, and keep them coming. We're very, very grateful for that kind of thing. So obviously that leads on, but actually before we go on to the next manager, because that's obviously the big topic, not going to make excuses for Thomas Frank, and but obviously he's not the main culprit here. There's many more, which is why he finds himself, like most end up Tottenham managers, in fact all Tottenham managers end up getting sacked at some point and in a bit of disarray. But Connor, we were having a bit of a chat before, weren't we? And we've got a couple of interesting visuals here for anyone watching on video about injuries. Now, obviously this has been a massive topic at Spurs with the previous 2 managers. Let's have a look at these graphs that we got then, Connor, because again, we're not excusing Thomas Frank, but obviously what he has been left to dealt with definitely adds a bit of context, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I mean, this has been an issue for a couple of years, as you say. Well, longer than a couple of years, particularly the last 2 seasons. But for a long time at Spurs, and I think there's all sorts of conspiracies going around at the moment as to whether it's something to do with the stadium and the way that the stadium has been built. Is it something to do with the training ground? Maybe the stadium was cursed when we got rid of that steelworks company next to it. I don't know, but there's all sorts of rumours, and look, I mean, this is one which you can't see that well, but effectively the orange is Thomas Frank's reign. And we've been averaging 8 absences from matchday squads over each game of the season, which to me is ridiculous. I mean, we are by far the most in the Premier League again, and I think this one brings it to life a little bit with some faces of the players that we've been missing from those matchday squads. And look, I don't think no one is using it as an excuse to say that it impacts how badly Frank did. But it does have an impact, right? If you're having to keep mixing and matching different players playing together. I mean, for me, my theory on the injuries, for what it's worth, is twofold. I think one is that I think it wouldn't shock me, like every other department at this football club, that it was one that was underinvested in and a bit of a shit show in the way that it was run. And the second one for me is when you've got an unbalanced squad, and you've got depth issues in terms of the quality that you can bring in, certain players do get overplayed. They then get injured through overplaying. Kudus is a prime example. God knows how Porro didn't get injured sooner, given how many games that guy's played in a row. And then once those injuries start, it very quickly spirals out of control because you then have more players playing more games, not getting a rest, and the risk of injury grows and grows and grows and grows, right? And it becomes sort of self-perpetuating. So I think, and you're going to see more. I think we're going to see more between now and the end of the season because we've got 12, 13 players out again right now. Obviously, we didn't do anywhere near enough in the January window to give Frank even a little bit of a chance. And so, I think it's a massive issue. And look, Ferg, I agree on Kudus. He could have rotated Kudus, but he probably didn't trust in the depth that we had behind it. That is also a reflection on the managers to some extent. You could argue the same thing with Ange last season when Ange could have played Spence at times and Udogie ended up getting injured because he was rushed back. It isn't solely on the ownership or the lack of investment in the squad, but I think it is definitely a contributing factor.
Right, definitely. And guys, I'm going to put you on the spot here, same with you guys in the chat as well. I want you to summarise Thomas Frank's reign in one sentence for me. So I'll be honest, I don't think it'll be a very memorable reign. I don't think, like the previous manager, this name will pop up every debate, like the previous manager still does, and probably will continue to over the next one as well. Chat, let us know, how would you summarise Thomas Frank's reign in one sentence? Lubo, how will you look back on this era, Thomas Frank era? How would you summarise that in one sentence?
A massive disappointment.
One word in the chat, I can see quite a few times as well. Say that again, sorry.
A massive disappointment.
Luke? And by the way, Luke, while you're away, Blaine said something very unfavourable about he said, we're the good-looking panel, and he said, not you, Luke, I'm afraid, but there you go.
I know, big shout out to Blaine. I love all of the positivity and the nice words he's got to say about me. To be fair, not many people have positive words to say about me, so we'll take it anyway. Unambitious, I think, is the way it is for me. Just being content, being as we are, and yeah, unambitious, I think.
And Connor?
Boring. I mean, as simple as that, it's been boring, but it's I like unambitious as well. because I think that sums up Tottenham.
And that talks about the people above as well. Right. Well, so when this happens, and we're used to, aren't we, as Spurs fans, you always get excited about what's coming next. And I think deep down, we all love the gossip and the rumours about who's coming. I've seen some absolutely ridiculous links today from our favourites, vocal ITK accounts on Twitter, some more positive ones. But let's first go to the man who does know what's going on behind the scenes often. Lubo, where are we going next then for Tottenham, do you think? Let's picture that North London derby in 12 days' time. Who can you see stepping out onto that White Hart Lane for the first time as manager?
I think it'll be Heitinger. I think my personal feeling is that maybe Redknapp as the motivator, as the elder statesman, with a bit of experience to help, to put an arm around players, to big up the players, get them playing with confidence again. My mate, what does my mate Jeff say? My mate Jeff says that there's not too much another manager can do with the same set of players because he doesn't rate the players. I think Redknapp possibly with Heitinger. For me, that would be pretty good if Redknapp brought Defoe in. Defoe knows the club, but I just got a feeling that although I hear Vinay wants De Zerbi, I also hear the Lewises want Poch, and the bosses normally get what they want. So I think Poch in the summer, and probably Redknapp maybe, or Heitinger for the rest of the season.
So this is I think that's where we're heading personally as well. But my theory is that I think they're a bit terrified if we appoint an interim and it goes wrong, we might get relegated. So I think that's why you're seeing these De Zerbi links, because I think everyone would be happy to have an interim till summer, then get Poch, or not everyone, but you can't please all Spurs fans. That's impossible.
I hear Vinay. I was told Billy. I was told Vinay doesn't want an interim.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can see the logic there, because obviously if you employ someone inexperienced, we lose 3 games, suddenly we're in the bottom 3, and then can we get ourselves back out of that? So I can see that there. But so I think that also might be why Thomas Frank has been in the job for so long, is because they just don't know what to do. And I still think they don't know what to do. I remember the sort of when Pochettino got sacked, Mourinho was announced very soon after, wasn't he? But I think they might be in a bit of a pickle with this one. I'm not sure where to go. Luke, where do you reckon they'll end up going?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's the only reason Frank's been in charge for as long as he has, is because they don't know what's next. And I completely agree with what Connor said. I think it was his first statement was that unless you can upgrade, what's the point? Because we do this a load, like we've done it with Brennan Johnson. Let's get rid of him because he's not very good. And guess who came in and replaced him? Absolutely nobody. And this is what we do. But it gets to a point where something needs to change, and I don't think we've got any transfer windows around the corner. It's a pity we haven't been able to strengthen or anything like that recently. But I think that it will be Heitinger. But it all depends. And this is what I said. You can listen. This is Spurs. Don't look at the sensible option, because that probably ain't going to happen. Is the idea that they want Poch? Poch ain't coming until after the World Cup. So if that's the guy you want, then you have to find something in the interim. Are you looking around at the manager market right now and saying, "Yep, this is the guy"? De Zerbi doesn't make much sense to me because, as I said earlier, Paratici wanted him. We said Paratici weren't good enough. We didn't give him the reins to the club, which is why he's left and gone elsewhere. And now we're looking at appointing the manager that he wanted all along. So I don't think it makes much sense. And also, I think he's a really dangerous one for the ball to come in. You've got to understand, these balls, they love to protect themselves. They love to have someone in front of them that's going to take all the heat. De Zerbi does not care, mate. He'll go into press conferences and he'll tell you exactly what. If he had the transfer window that Thomas Frank has just had, he won't be sitting there like Thomas Frank going, "Yeah, we've had a great window. Yeah, if players can't come in, if they can't improve it," he'd be going, "This is ridiculous. What's going on here?" So that, for me, brings a lot of risk on them. And I don't think these are the sorts of characters that want to take on that risk. I think they're going to try and go as safe as they possibly can. I think if this was about 10, 15 years ago, it'd have been Big Sam walking through the door just to make sure that they can keep the Premier League status and then move on. But yeah, it's a tough one. But I think I said as soon as Heitinga came in, I was like, he is the backup plan, because I think it was Man United done this a couple of years. Oh, it was when when they brought in Van Nistelrooy. And I was like, well, obviously he's going to take the job. Like, he's going to get the job. And then a couple of months, no, he's just an assistant. And then after a couple of weeks, it all went wrong. So Van Nistelrooy then become the manager. And I feel like this was their backup plan. That's why Heitinga came in. And it doesn't necessarily matter about the quality of someone else coming through the door. I think it's just a lift, or because let's be frank, if we go and win a couple of games, then that probably means that we're safe, because then other teams have to start winning 4, 5s and 6s, which they haven't done. So we only need a boost for a few games. I know that is such a negative way to look at it, but I think that's how the board are going to look at it and say, because there isn't the name out there, unfortunately.
I don't think Heitinga was a contingency plan. I was told that Vinay and Lange wanted Frank to be given the season. And it was
I think they do. Yeah, I agree. I think that was always it. But I think that was a contingency of, if this doesn't get any better, then at least there's someone within the club, because that's the gamble you've got. Like, people talking about bringing in Harry Redknapp, Robbie Keane, like, there's no proof in anything that these guys are going to be able to come in and do anything longer term. They've not been ingrained in the club for ages. Like, I just feel like, at least with Heitinga, he's been in and around it. He's probably got some, and being an assistant, you're the go-between between the players and the manager. You have to be on the manager's side, but he can gauge, look, these players, they're not the ones. These are the players I need to get on side. Like, and I just think that he's the guy that they're gonna go with until, if Poch is the one that they want.
But if you brought, I mean, I was told that it was the Lewis family that pulled the plug on Frank. If you bring Redknapp in, he's a motivator. And then you've got Heitinga, who is up to speed with current training methods and styles and systems. So for me, that dovetails nicely.
Yeah, I think personally, I just think the problem is, like, when you're looking at your Romeros, Van der Vens, they've got no idea who Harry Redknapp is. They've got no idea whatsoever. He's not worked in professional football for over 10 years. He's got a dodgy ticker. I wouldn't want to manage him, let alone put him through that. And I just think that we're looking at it from a Spurs point of view. And I think Spurs fans might be thinking, if there was a group of, if all of these Tottenham players were Spurs fans, maybe it'd be a different outlook. But none of these are Spurs fans. As I say, most of them probably don't even know who Harry Redknapp is. So I just don't think he walks in and commands the respect and brings the feel-good factor that some people think he will. I think it's a little bit nostalgic.
So who would you suggest? Someone like Klinsmann?
No, I generally think that Heitinga is the guy that they'll go to. I can't imagine.
You think they'll respect him?
Well, I would. Who knows, right? We don't know the ins and outs of it, but I just think that you're talking about respect. Why would they respect Redknapp? Why would they respect, like, people have been mentioning Glenn Hoddle? Why would they be like, these are, people forget, you say what you like about Romero, but he's won the World Cup, and he's going to be sitting there going, there's an 80-year-old guy that's just walked through the door here. Like, he's not been a professional manager for 10, 15 years. Like, I just think that, as I say, we're looking at it from a fan perspective and not from a player perspective. If we're talking about Van der Ven sitting there saying, I want to go and win trophies, then an 80-year-old. And also, it's not, if it was a couple of games, then maybe I'll be like, okay, I get it. There's 12 Premier League games. There's 2 Champions League games. This is an 80-year-old man going back and down, up and down the country, traveling abroad, coming back. I don't see a world in which it happens, personally. And listen, I love Redknapp. Redknapp's football was unbelievable. I loved it. But I just think now, in the way the game goes, the way it's being played, we all keep saying about the differences in football nowadays. I just think that it's a far reach for us. I think you
talk to players about Bale and Modric under Redknapp, and they will know then who Redknapp is.
No, I listen. I say, from a fan's point of view, 100% agree with you. 100%.
Connor, any ideas where we're going to head with this?
Yeah, look, I think this Again, I don't like to do this because I'm not really coming up with a solution, but this just shows the fucking mismanagement, doesn't it? Again, of, you've got yourself into a situation whereby we're scrambling around having to talk about Harry Redknapp or Heitinga, who's also been at the club for 5 minutes, and the only managerial job that he did at Ajax was not particularly glowing. So, but I agree that ideally you don't want to hire your permanent manager now, because I don't trust. Again, I've made this point loads when we've had the conversations about Frank. I don't trust who is currently in charge to make the right decision because they're incapable of it. So, Langer is still there. He's still involved in this next manager search. Vinay will be involved as well. I think it's so. For me, in an ideal world, you wanted to get a new sporting director in place, and they could help pick the next manager, right? Unfortunately, you can't really do that again. I think all roads are leading to Poch at the moment, because I think, they also know, let's have it right. Poch was amazing at Tottenham, and I hate it when people talk about the fact that he never got over the line for a trophy and all of that crap, because actually the job he did, in spite of the ownership, back to the earlier point, was unbelievable. This was a guy that had Carter Vickers and Josh Onomah on the bench.
No one's ever got near since.
He was a fantastic manager at Tottenham. But the problem is I think they're looking at this one really because they know this is their get out the jail free card again. Yeah. They know the fans are going to love it. They know they're going to lap it up. We'll be in the same situation where they don't back him properly. And, we're in a situation now where there's more clubs you're competing with for talent because the Premier League is harder. So it's going to be really, really difficult unless they change. And so, yeah, somewhat, to use a Sava line, it doesn't really matter who the manager is, in my view, because we need to change the footballing structure and the ownership needs to change. But we just need to scrape through now. At this point, we need to just survive. And then in the summer, it's going to be Poch. Let's all get behind him, hopefully. He comes in, tries to force some expectations on the ownership to say, I'm only coming back in if you do X, Y, and Z. We all know that ultimately ENIC might promise to that and will probably end up lying. But let's see where that lands. But yeah, I think it will be Heitinga, to be honest, until the end of the season, just because I think the other shouts are all a bit too risky, right? The Redknapp, the Tim Sherwoods. Robbie Keane is in a permanent job. He's not going to take it without any sort of chance of getting a permanent job at the end.
Connor, he's already distanced himself today, Robbie Keane.
There we go. So, yeah, it's dire straits. But again, this sort of, if we'd done this 4 or 5 weeks ago, you would have been giving whoever you brought into this a decent run of fixtures as well, right? Because we actually had a decent, 4 or 5 games, plus you had the January window as well, right? Yeah. And now my worry with a De Zerbi is, again, are we only talking to De Zerbi because he's suddenly become available? I know we have spoken to him in the past, but it's convenient that he's become available. He's an absolute lunatic. And so, again, it's Conte 2.0, but to be honest, he actually hasn't got the credibility of a Conte yet. Plays some good football, but he hasn't done what Conte's done in the game. So, yeah, it's a tough situation, unfortunately, and we just all need to pray we scramble through.
Yeah, and we will finish the show. We'll probably go for about another 10, 15, but we will definitely finish the show by talking about those two things, how we got in this mess in terms of board level and relegation. But just a quick one, I'm just going to show you guys these list of names here. These are the bookies' favourites. And no, this is not sponsored, by the way. So we have got so far, we've mentioned a lot of them already. Chat, let us know if you fancy any of these. De Zerbi is currently favourite, then Heitinga, Pochettino, Keane, the 4 that we've discussed the most. Ryan Mason is always in the mix when it comes to Tottenham. We've got Glasner, Silva, who I imagine would be more end of the season options. Areola, Amorim, who is obviously vacant. Gareth Southgate is obviously vacant. Maresca is vacant. Tim Sherwood, who seemed to put his own name in the hat on Sky Sports twice today. I don't know if anyone has seen that. And then Xavi. I think Tim Sherwood will be delighted to be ahead of Xavi there in that race. Lubo, anyone on the list there that we haven't discussed? I mean, everyone's favourite, absolutely ridiculous Twitter ITK account today has posted, we've approached Simeone today. I can't see that being true. But Lubo, anyone on that list that you just imagine that for a second and let that play out? But
would they want to match Simeone's £20 million a year wages? Probably not.
No. Anyone else that take your fancy? What about Maresca, who's free? Not free, but free.
I'll tell you what we need to do. The club, first of all, the Lewis family need to work out what they want to do with the club. That's the first thing. Are they going to back it? Are they going to back the football team? Are they going to take the football team, the football side seriously? They've only taken the commercial side seriously for 25 years. Are they going to get behind the football side and build it up? What shocked me more than anything else was our highest net profit was the year we reached Madrid in the final. We made 138 million nets, I think it was. So you could see that football and financial success correlates. Very surprised someone as financially smart as Levy didn't actually jump on that and say, Joe, look at this. This is what happens when the team does well. They're making ENIC money. So that's the first thing. So if they then say, right, if we're not going to sell, if they are going to back the club, then there's got to be an identity. You bring an identity to the club. You do what I know Ajax aren't doing particularly well at the moment, but they have an identity. They have ex-players like Bayern Munich have had Rummenigge and Uli Hoeneß at the club. Ajax have had people like Overmars for years at the club, and they play a certain way, and they pick their managers to play that way. So what you don't get is you don't get Poch with his style of football going into Jose, going to Nuno, going to Conte, going to Ange, going to Frank. So you've got different styles that require different players, skill sets for players. So you've got different squads with players that were bought for one system having to be used by a manager who plays a different system. Porro and Udogie were bought as wing-backs. Conte left. They're playing as inverted full-backs. I mean, it was ridiculous. So probably I would think Nick Boucher was the person who pulled the ultimately. Well, maybe it was Charrington, because Charrington was there at the ground last night to watch the game. So as soon as I heard that, I just thought the writing's on the wall. So first of all, they've got to work out what they want to do. If they're going to keep it, there's got to be an identity. They've got to bring a winning culture to the club, and they've got to bring a style to the club, and they've got to set on that style. And once you've got that style, then you know what type of manager you're after. So for me, Pochettino is number one. You heard in his interview with Jake Humphries, guy loves the club. He genuinely does feel that he's got unfinished business here, and he wants to leave a legacy as a winner. So for me, it's Pochettino. For me, it's that style of football. It's going to be much harder for him this time. He's not coming into a club that already had Lloris, Dembele, Vertonghen, Walker, Rose, Harry Kane. He's got to go out and he's got to rip this squad up, mate, and build a new squad. But he has got a lot of good youngsters, and he's very good at bringing kids through. So, for me, if Poch joins, there is some light at the end of the tunnel, but it all depends on the owners. If the owners carry on the way they've been going for 25 years, it really doesn't matter who you bring in. They're being set up to fail. And
Luke, on that, so, I mean, since the day that Levy left, the Lewis family, ENIC 2.0, Vinay, whatever you want to call them, swear words, I'm sure would be appropriate at this point. It couldn't have gone much worse, really, in the last 6 months, could it? Their start they've had. They've lost a director of football. They've lost a manager now. They've sacked a manager. a club captain is coming out against them. The club are in a relegation battle. The connectivity between the fans at an all-time low. Where does this leave us with our lovely ENIC 2.0 and Vinay? Is this a major hit, another major hit, I should say, on the reputation of those guys?
I mean, I didn't believe it from the day it was announced about Levy, the way they threw Levy under the bus. Say what you like about Levy, he wasn't the one that had all of the money. The facts is that I've always said this: you can pass on responsibility, you can't pass on the accountability. If I'm Levy's boss and I keep seeing all over the press, all over the papers, that he's the one that's blocking this, he's the one that's not paying the extra couple of million, he's the one that's not paying that 10 grand a week, turn around and go, hang on a minute, what are you doing? I've got it all here. They was absolutely fine with that because he was timesing their investment by, I'll let Connor do the numbers because I'll look stupid. But they was happy with that. They was absolutely content with that. And if they then said, look, Levy's taken us to this level in terms of the commercial aspect and got us here, but we think someone else needs to come in to take us to a new level, fine. But it was very much like he was the source of all problems at this club. He's now gone. We're changing it. And then in the 2 transfer windows, the day after the transfer windows end on both, we've heard how much they're going to prove to us in 6 months' time that they're going to go big again and have the audacity after a 33-day window to bring one player through the door, 20 without, despite having a nice little note in the match day program to say how much money we've got and how much we're going to go really big. Soon as the transfer window ends, we're getting another promise of there, but don't worry, wait till the next one. So yeah, we did. That's what we was told last time. Still didn't deliver. But I feel like Lubo might have a secret camera in my ass because when he was talking about the managers, I wrote down, forget about Poch's history, right? For me as a club, what Spurs want to be, they want young talent to come through. They want to progress young players, whether you buy them, ideally they come through your academy. Well, he ticks that box, right? That's what he does. He's renowned for working with young players and bringing them through. So he ticks that box. Spurs fans want attacking football. He ticks that box. The pressing, the front foot, the ferociousness, that's what we want. There's a clear philosophy in Poch. He's going to be wanting to do a certain way of playing consistently. And he'll adapt in certain games, which you have to. But you'll understand exactly what Poch wants. You know where he's going to go with it. He develops players. I mean, people talk about the squad that Poch went in there with. They forget that Danny Rose was a left winger. He wasn't a left back really when Poch came in. Poch helped develop him into the player he was. Kyle Walker was at the club, but Kyle Walker wasn't the best right back in the Premier League when Poch walked through the door. So he goes and he develops players. He won't talk down about the club. He won't sit there telling us how crap we are and how useless we are and we should just be glad to pick up the odd win here or there. And he generally wants to be here. So if you're going through your list of managers, there are a lot of things that tick the boxes, right? And yes, listen, every manager at the level we're at is going to come with some negativity. Of course it is. There's going to be some question marks. Of course they are. But I just feel like he epitomizes exactly what we want to be and become. And now maybe he's a manager that will come in and it might be a couple of years. And then you might be doing, oh, hang on a minute. Maybe we need to go to someone else now to really push us over the line. Worry about that in a couple of years because we're so far off it. And I've seen so many people say, oh, he didn't win for PSG. He was the first manager not to win. And I'm like, we're not winning. Don't worry about that. Let's just enjoy turning up at that stadium week in, week out. Yes, we're going to lose some games, as Frank's already told us, but we'll also draw some. We might even win some. It might be quite enjoyable. Let's just worry about that for this moment. And because we're so far off it, I just think that he works so well with what we've got. But listen, Sava's right. It doesn't really matter. We need to start changing the way that we run as a football club. I said all of this under Ange. Sack him, no problem. Guess what? The new guy that comes in, he's going to have just as many problems. And this January was exactly what last January was under Ange. He sat there for 6, 7, 8 weeks with no centre halves, went into January transfer window, and we signed someone in February. This is just what happens. This is how we are. And that's why I just think Poch makes a lot of sense. He's not perfect. There isn't a perfect candidate, but I just think he makes a bit of sense. And then he does tug on the heartstrings as well. And if you haven't watched that interview, go and watch it and then tell me that you don't want him to come back because it definitely strengthened my position on that.
And we'll wrap it up in the next 5. And just a shout out to a friend of the show, to Trunk, who's going to be on. We're going to force him to come on soon in the next week or two as well. And Connor, does Frank going seriously had a big question mark over both Vinay and Langer for their future, because obviously they're in a structure as well. Should they be looking over their shoulders for a P45 too?
Yeah, I mean, Langer should have been. Well, he should have gone after the summer. Well, there's not. He should never have been hired. But let's move on. He should have gone after the summer, and he should have gone after this January window. Instead, he gets rolled out for that absolute disgrace of an interview that he did. And by the way, this is not, in any way sort of defending Paratici either, because my views on Paratici. I think he was also a mixed bag, to be honest, and never should have been rehired either, right? So, as I say, they missed that opportunity to bring in the sporting director. They've got to do that next. I think, to be honest, this probably came into Vinay's thinking a little bit in terms of the delay on the decision on Frank, because I think, you reeled off some bits a minute ago. It's been an absolute shit show, right, under his stewardship as CEO. And look, I think what we're seeing play out here, to be honest, and Vinay probably has done some decent stuff, I reckon, behind the scenes in terms of actually putting in place some structures, for all the stuff that we don't care about. But he's missed the one big thing, which was the sporting director. Never brought that in, and so that for me is the biggest miss for sure. So with Poch, that is an absolute must, that we need to bring in someone to support Poch on that. But look, I think what we're seeing play out here is years and years and years of mismanagement, and culture is set from the very top, right, of any business. And when the culture at the top of ours is, we don't really care about winning. We want to be there or thereabouts. If we can get into the Champions League, that'd be great, because then we can get some more revenue. And then what we can do with that revenue is not spend as much money on wages as anyone else, so that we can make some more money. And then we'll take that money and invest that into some property. And then we'll build our own empire, and we'll get a bigger investment return. And isn't that great? There's no prioritization of football whatsoever. That is their modus operandi over 25 years, and what that seeps into everything, right? So Doris, the tea lady, probably turning up late to work because she thinks, fuck it, there's no accountability, there's no will to win here. Romero is club captain, and look, I love what Romero said about the board, but at the same time it comes out, well, he's rocking up late to training all the time with no penalty, no fine, nothing as a result of doing that. And people will say that was Frank, but I think that's just the culture at the football club now. The culture of the football club is, we don't really care. And this is why, for me, the Lewis family can say they're going to change. I don't think they will. But even if they were willing to, I think it's really difficult for them to do now, because they've set this culture. It's almost like that Mike Ashley thing at Newcastle, right? Whereby you just need to get rid of them. You need a fresh start, and you need a new ownership of someone who cares. And I think I was on a show not that long ago, Lube, you might have been on there, and I made the point that if you had Qataris take over Tottenham would be challenging for league titles within 5 years, because of the financial headroom that we've got, and because they would have the unfettered ambition to win, which Tottenham have never had, right? And unfortunately for us, we're just watching a great football club die a slow and painful death under these owners.
That's right. If you had owners that came in and made a statement, the rest of football would sit up and look, Spurs are back. They mean business, and players would respond to that.
And Connor, I know you just said about players like Romero doing that, and how do you shift that mentality? Again, Pochettino had Adebayor, he had certain players where he went, you're not up to it, right? And also, the other way that you do that is you bring in better squad players. So you turn around and say, listen, I know there's going to be some in this chat that are going to tell me that Danso and Dragusin are near Romero's level. They ain't. They're not. They're nowhere near it. So when you say to Romero, you're not going to play in the next 10 games because of the way you've gone and done certain bits and pieces, he's like, all right, no problem. Because watch when the new person comes in, like Dragusin did. I know he's come back from an ACL, but he's going to be so far off it. That's a detriment to your club. So you can't do that, right? So if you go and get better squad players, so that when Romero does drop out, the person that comes in for him, you go, hang on a minute, I need to be a little bit careful here, because otherwise I might sit 6 months, not play, and then top clubs are not going to want me, that sort of stuff. So listen, what Romero done is exactly what fans wanted. But that sort of thing should never happen, and it would never happen at well-run football clubs. So the fact that we are okay with it happening just shows how bad this is run, because otherwise we'd be sitting there going, you can't do things like that. Whereas we're all going, that's exactly what needs to happen. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so it all comes back to the facts that they need to go and invest. They need to go and do some serious transfers. They need to go and get some good players, build a good squad, and then you can factor out and get rid of all of these players that think they're above the club, think they're indispensable when they're not going to. The only two players in the last 10 years that should have been sitting there going, I play every game, as Son and Kane. Outside of that, everyone else, you can swap one out, put another one in. If Porro don't start, then Spence does, and virtually you could do that for everyone else in that squad. So I agree with you, but I just think that there are other ways of doing it, but you have to have a very strong manager. And again, Poch has done that previously. He's worked with Neymar, Messi and Mbappe. I mean, he's not going to have a problem with working with some of the talent that we've got in terms of like, what have I won? What have I done? He's worked with the very, very best. So I just think it makes a lot of sense.
And so there it is. That's the end of the Thomas Frank reign at Tottenham. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be particularly impactful in our history and one that we look back on. Before we do, I'm going to ask the gents one more question before we go. Please make sure you go and check out Spotlight on Spurs and the Spurs 5. And if you're watching this channel, enjoying it, please like and subscribe to us as well. We look forward to being back on Friday. But before I go, gents, just going to ask you one question, gut feeling. I'll start with you, Luke, this time. Is Tottenham going to be in the Premier League next year?
Yeah, I think we will. When you actually go and look at the next 5 games for each of the teams that are around us, they all play very good teams. So I think most of them actually play City and Liverpool, but a couple also play a Chelsea or an Arsenal and everything else. So when we're playing the big games, they're also playing tough games where I think if we was all level on points right now, then I may be giving a different answer. But I think with that cushion, with the fact that hopefully we get a few more players back for what we would per se as the easier games, I think we'll do just enough. But is there a genuine possibility that we go down? Yes, I just don't think that it happens.
Lubo, are you going to be going to away grounds that you haven't been to before next year, or are you going to be going to familiar ones?
Well, no, listen, Bristol City, Wrexham were 2. I was thought to myself,
sounds good, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think if Frank had stayed, and if he'd have stayed to the end of the season, which would never happen, but if he was staying, I couldn't see where the next win was coming from. I can see light at the end of the tunnel now. I know we've had a horrendous run at home, but the 5 games after Arsenal are all very winnable. Got Palace, Forest, Brighton, Leeds and Everton. They're all winnable. And we should, for me, we've got to get the right person in now. I think probably, and I might be overcooking it a bit, but just to be safe, 40 points, 12 points from 12 games. And I think we can get those from those home games. I think we can win 4 of the 5. Away from home, apart from Wolves, we've got Fulham, Villa, Liverpool, Chelsea. Not going to be easy.
And Connor,
not going to be easy.
Are we going to be doing this show from the Championship next year, or are we going to be doing it from the Premier League?
No, Premier League.
Yeah, I think we'll scrape through, not necessarily because of us, but because of other teams failing to catch up that cushion, as Luke says. I think we're 5 points above West Ham, but it's effectively 6 because the goal difference is so much better.
Yeah.
So I think we'll just about scrape it. I think I'm hopeful now with Frank going that maybe certain of the players that just switched off now raise themselves by 5%. That's normally manager bounces aren't necessarily about the new manager. They're often about just players deciding they want to suddenly turn up for their hundreds of thousands a week. A couple of players back from injury. There aren't that many coming back, but a couple. I think we'll just about scrape through. But worrying times. I mean, how are we even sitting on a podcast in 2026 chatting about that and looking out to make sure that Burnley have beat Crystal Palace? I mean, it is absolutely
Results have gone
dire.
our way tonight for once. So unlike last night,
Yeah.
they have gone our way. We
The
might be
one,
all
the
right.
one thing, so the one thing I will say is that when you actually break it down, next year could be a real struggle because
Well, that's like the West
Romero,
Ham
Van der
isn't
Ven,
it? Yeah.
there's already question marks over them. What do we go and do from what we've done in previous windows? That could be a bit of a struggle. You lose one or two, the manager you're not sure of. So this year's a problem, but next year, unless we really start acting like a decent club, next year could be one where we're sitting here going, well, we're even losing decent players.
Yeah.
So
I think we'll lose one, not both centre backs.
I agree. And
That's why.
if we go on,
no, you go.
I was just going to say, and going off of what we've previously done, Romero doesn't get replaced. Someone worse comes in, or Van der Ven doesn't get replaced. Someone worse comes in, and then all of a sudden the squad's worse than it was this year. And there's a rigmarole. That's how it happens, right? It just rolls on and on and on.
Could be Viskovic.
That's why it's key that they make the right decision next. But don't worry, we've got our best men on it, I'm sure. There's no chance that Vinay and Langer can let us down, so we'll be just fine, I'm sure. But make sure, as I said, we can go and check out the guys' channels, subscribe and like and all that jazz for this one. Connor, we got a couple of and obviously, let's be honest, it's emergency show season at the moment. I'm sure if we do get a manager in the next couple of days, we'll be on live on that day as well. But Connor, we do have some planned ones coming up because we're not playing this weekend. But Connor, what have we got coming up lately?
Yeah, so we got Martin Lipton is coming on the show, chief sports writer of The Sun on Friday. So we'll have
What's
a
he
bit
going
of
to
a
talk
chat
about?
about.
There's nothing to talk about there, is there?
Yeah, indeed. I think I originally named the show something like Takeover Toon and Tottenham, thinking we'd just review the Newcastle game and get a bit of intel from him on this old Levy selling his shares crap. But yeah, I think there's a bit more to talk about now than that, so we'll have to rename that. But yeah, that's 7:30 on Friday. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Then we got a North London derby on the horizon, but we'll do. I'm sure, as everyone will be. Once we get a manager, we'll go live as well. But thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you to the guys, especially Luke and Lubo. And as always, come on, you Spurs.